Well, hello and welcome, people of the internet. Today I want to talk a little bit more about Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon. I'm thinking for some of these games that I play here on stream, I might just do like a kind of updated feelings and thoughts videos through my progression of the game. In a game like this, it's kind of easy because it's kind of got a rough act structure or map structure. You know, once you complete the first map, you go to the second map, and then there's a third map after that. So it's got basically a 3-act structure. And I've just completed Act 1 after about 25 hours. So my Steam page says 33 hours, but you got to remember I played 4 hours for the kind of review time that I did before the game came out. Plus I've probably had it just sitting open for an hour or two. So let's say a rough 25 hours to complete the first act. And that includes all the quests that I wanted to complete or could complete, which I'll talk a little bit about in kind of the spoilery section, which of course I'll tag and put a time mark. So that way, if you don't want any spoilers, you can kind of skip over that section. But for this first part, there will be no spoilers at all. So what are my overall thoughts since creating that first impressions video? Well, to start off, I like this game a lot more than I did in my first 4 hours. In those first 4 hours, I had quite a bit of fun. Don't get me wrong. At the end of that first impressions video, I said, hey, it's a good game. It's got flaws, sure. But, you know, if you play it, you're going to have a good time. And the more I played it, the more fun I had. And honestly, over this past weekend, I've been a little bit addicted. Like Saturday, I think I played for like 10 or 11 hours. And even though I was just kind of like drained and exhausted at the end of all that, I still wanted to come back and play more. But I was just like, it's not going to be good if I play more. So let's just leave it where it is. You know, I got stuff to do anyway. So I kind of, you know, forced myself not to play more. But just exploring around the map. Combat was a big one. Combat was a big one that I had some issues with in my first 4 hours. And I think a lot of that came down to the fact that I just didn't really like the block and parry system. But once I kind of ditched that, the combat really opened up and I had a lot more fun with it. So not necessarily saying that everyone should skip those mechanics, but for me, my timing is not all that great when it comes to parry systems in other games. But I do still think that the parry window in Tainted Grail is pretty tight. I have tried it a little bit more. It's just very tight. Now, I think once you kind of, if you want to go for a parry build and you start speccing into the parry skill tree, there are some nodes that you can take that expand that parry window and would probably make it a little bit easier to get those parries. However, for me and the build that I want to play, I'm playing kind of like it's kind of transitioned into like a Blood Witcher build. So we're relying fairly heavily on potions, using a bit of magic, a bit of combat. I found this really cool spear, actually. It's a two-handed spear that after you have under, I think it's 50% of your maximum mana, it deals double physical damage. So basically I have 3 loadouts that are 1 spell, and I'm using a spear that I got very, very early on in the first act that does a guaranteed crit when you hit an enemy at full health, but also applies bleed on hit. It doesn't really synergize with the kit real well, except for the spell that I'm using, which is it's the upgraded version of the blood spell that you get at the very beginning of the game. I think it's like Life Transfusion. I think Blood Transfusion is the first one you get. Life Transfusion is the upgraded one. Really sweet. So basically, just a quick breakdown of it. The short press uses your life instead of mana and does some damage and applies bleed to enemies. And then if you hold it down, it will actually absorb the health of enemies at the cost of mana. And then I have a couple other really strong spells. I have a great lightning spell, Lightning Lash, Thunder Lash, I think, does a lot of damage and can also chain lightning enemies. That one's really fun to play with. So I kind of use those, drain all my mana, and then swap over to my two-handed spear and do a lot of damage that way. I did just pick up a blade though, a sword, which I've been looking for at the end of Act 1 that I think I'm going to be switching to, but I need to find a blacksmith first to upgrade it. That all being said, so like I said, once I kind of got past the whole blocking and parrying thing, now I'm relying on dodge as my way to get out of, you know, enemies' range. That made combat a lot more digestible for me. The fact that I was dying a lot to like blocks just having more damage come in, but also the parries just didn't feel great for me. I wasn't really having fun with the combat. So as soon as I ditched those mechanics, I started having a lot more fun, really relying on dodges. But I just really like this combat style. And so once I kind of got into it, it really just lined up for me. Now, in addition to that, another thing that I was a little bit hesitant about, and I really want to open up, I did add a comment underneath the initial impressions video I had, kind of clarifying some stuff because I wasn't sure if I was going to do a follow-up video. But one of the big concerns I had in those first 4 hours playing was bosses. So bosses, the first boss that I fought is one of the first ones you fight in the story quest. It's a necromancer, and I talked a little bit about it, how it just really felt like a stamina fest off, where I kind of just had to use my ult, slow down time, slash him a bunch, and then ultimately, kill him after just smashing him a bunch. There wasn't really any mechanics to the fight, and I was a little bit concerned that future bosses were going to be the same. Man, I could not have been more wrong. So bosses in this game are really cool, and some of the most fun bosses that I've fought in a first-person RPG, you know the other ones. The fact that you have two different ways to kind of get around damage, those being the dodge and parry, means that you can play around with mechanics a lot more. So there are some bosses, man, there was one boss near the end of Act 1, which, I'll talk a little bit more in the spoiler section, but man, he was challenging. He was really tough. He had a lot of different attacks, a lot of different tactics. The fact that enemies can heal themselves is pretty big, because you think you're getting them pretty close, and then just like you pop health potions, they pop health potions. Obviously, those aren't really like combat mechanics, but if you're doing the bounty system, there's an enemy that you can fight where you're fighting on a really narrow, like, castle ridge kind of. It's up, it's up on a wall, maybe only like 6 feet ish across, right? So if you're dodging from side to side, you might fall off. Don't ask me how I know that. But basically, you can't really dodge to the side of him, and he's just using a one-handed sword. So if you go too far away from him, he'll start chucking daggers at you, right? But if you get in close to him, and remember, you can't really dodge to the side of him. So what I started doing was dodging, rather than dodging backwards, dodging forwards. And so if we're doing one of these things where if this is the enemy, right, and this is me, I would dodge to this side of him. Well, what he does is if he swings at you, you dodge behind him, he'll use that momentum and spin around and attack behind him. So not only do you have to dodge behind him, but you also have to move forward even more to get out of his range. It was really cool to see that. Even adding those one or two things make combat a little bit more engaging, and bring to light some of those other mechanics in combat that I was a little bit concerned about with that necromancer boss. Now, obviously, there are other bosses. There's another boss that's kind of similar to the necromancer boss that actually does what I was hoping the necromancer was. I won't go much more into that, but in general, I am much happier with boss design. There have been a lot of really fun, really challenging bosses to fight, and I'm only on adventure difficulty. I've thought about stepping it up to veteran at this point. The other thing about the necromancer boss, I'm pretty sure I was under-leveled. But anyway, that doesn't really matter. Obviously, you can kind of grind through any fights you want to. There's some other like UI stuff that I figured out in the end. The fact that you can actually use your potions in your menu system. You just have to go to one specific menu. I still really enjoy the leveling system, and the fact that for some reason I didn't put it together that grinding enemies is actually a great way to get your stats up. I know that doesn't it doesn't compute to me that I wouldn't have thought about that, but I guess just my time in like Skyrim and, my modded versions of Skyrim, in thinking that only the skill level ups, or sorry, your skill level ups, only thinking that those would level up your overall, or only give you experience to your overall level. I wasn't really thinking like, oh, let me just kill mobs and that will get my character level up. And then so once I started doing that, because of the thing that I will talk about in the spoiler section, I got a bunch of level ups, and so I got some really sweet power. Builds here I still think are really fun. There's a lot of sweet weapons, and that's actually something I want to talk about here, is the fact that how they've built the weapons and gear specifically. I enjoy finding new gear, finding new loot a lot better than I do in other open world RPGs, first person RPGs specifically. So in other games, what I was thinking about is the fact that, let's say you start with like a bronze sword or an iron sword, something kind of generic. You start going around some dungeons like, oh, I found a steel sword. This one does a little bit more damage, so now I get to do more damage. Okay, and then you start going, start doing more dungeons. It's like, cool, now I have, whatever, a sharper sword, whatever. And then it's like, oh, it does more damage. And then you keep going, and then it's like, oh, now I found a titanium sword. It does more damage. And it's like, okay, that's kind of boring, right? But in this case, all of your blue items that you get, they all kind of change how builds work. So it's not necessarily all about just the damage they do, but for example, there might be a sword that gives you extra gold when you kill enemies, or like in my case, there's a spear that if you're under a certain threshold for mana, it does double damage. There are weapons that apply bleeds, and those are kind of more neutral, like we've seen before, just kind of like basic enchantments, but there are a lot of weapons that you can get that can completely change how you decide to build your character, and that to me is a little bit more exciting than just getting a weapon that just flat out increases your damage. That can be a little bit boring. I also really like some quality of life features that I didn't really pick up on until later, one of which is your stash. Stash is fantastic. You know, the fact that you can just throw stuff in your stash, and wherever you are in the world, if you want to cook or you want to alchemize, everything in your stash, it basically might as well be on your back. That is fantastic, especially with how much stuff I am picking up. There's no way I would be able to carry everything that I have in my backpack. So that is a really, really nice addition. I will say there's some weirdness to it though. For some reason, you can't upgrade your weapons or your gear from the blacksmith with stuff that's in your stash. Don't really know why that's not working the way I would think it is. And speaking of things that I'm not really sure, you know, working the way they are, some of the jankiness that I did mention in the first video is definitely still there. I don't exactly know what it is about these open world first person RPGs, as I'm pretty sure this is not the same engine as those, as I'm pretty sure the other engine that I'm thinking of is proprietary. But a lot of those same issues that I find there are also found in this game. The biggest one that has been a problem for me is enemies disappearing through the ground. Not only disappearing through the ground, sometimes they just flat out disappear, like their body is still there, but I just can't see them. There was one instance that really kind of set me off and was not great, where a boss fell under the ground, and I didn't realize this until later on, and I was reading an article where it was like, oh, this boss drops a really cool sword, because I was like, when am I going to get a really cool sword? And, you know, I went back to where the boss was, and unfortunately, you know, our body despawned, and because we, as PC players, we don't have access to the console, I couldn't, like, spawn the weapon in, even though I had earned it. That kind of set me off, and I was way too far to, like, I was, like, 4 or 5 hours past that, so I wasn't gonna, like, reset for it. So that, things like that happen, and are a little bit frustrating. It's only happened the one time with a boss. It does happen occasionally with mobs, but, like I said, if you have played other games in this vein, you'll probably already be used to that and kind of understand that. It was one of those things where I kind of just thought the boss didn't drop anything. There was another boss that actually did this. I'd mentioned this earlier, or I'd mentioned the boss earlier that was kind of similar to the Necromancer. Kind of did a similar thing, but it was hard to tell. Like, I was talking to Twitch chat, and some of the people there were like, well, he is kind of a ghostly entity, so maybe this is just like their way of having him disappear. He kind of just like folds into the ground, because there was nothing to loot on his body. And I actually fought him multiple times to see if I could make him not fall into the ground, but he just kept doing it. So I don't know if he ever drops loot. If he does, I missed it. But that does happen sometimes and is still a little bit of a frustration. Another one of those things that's a little bit weird, I've noticed that the voice balancing is not great in most situations, I will say. I have my voice volume turned all the way up. I have everything else turned to like 70%, and a lot of voices are really, really quiet. I kind of think this is due to, there might be some proximity things they're doing, right? The closer you are to people, the louder they are. And so the default distance between you and whatever NPC you're talking to is maybe too far. Beyond just like turning everything else down to like 20%, I don't know how else to fix this, but yeah, I wish the volume balancing was a little bit better. But other than that, I am still having an absolute blast. This game is absolutely great. I've had people ask me to like rate it on 0 to 10, and I don't really like doing that, but at the end of my first impressions video, I kind of talked about which would I rather pick up if I had to go back and only pick one. Would I go with Oblivion Remastered, or would I go with Tainted Grail? And at the end of there, I think I was edging a little bit more towards Oblivion Remastered. I'm going to be honest, guys, at this point, I am full on Tainted Grail. I probably wouldn't even look back. There's more issues in Oblivion Remastered than I have with Tainted Grail. Tainted Grail fixed a lot of things for me that I didn't really like about Oblivion Remastered. Like I said, it's still not a perfect experience. I'm probably never going to ever come away from this and be like, wow, this completely changed my mind. It's a perfect experience. But it is still a really, really great game. So, that being said, we're now going to talk a few spoilers here. And so if you don't want to hear those, you can skip to the end of the video. But otherwise, that's basically all we're going to talk about here for my first act impressions, let's say. So if you don't want to hear those spoilers, but you also don't want to make it to the end of the video, hey, leave a like on the video or subscribe to the channel or follow me over on Twitch, depending on what platform you want to watch some streams on. I'd very much appreciate it. And with that said, let's get into some Act 1 spoilers. The boss that was really great. So the kind of Act 1 end boss, which is Galahad, he's a menace. So he has like 4 or 5 different spells. He has a special sword that you can also get. Whenever it's a charge attack, it does a slashing like aerial blast, which is really sweet. He's also got like a shield. I think it reflects either magic or projectiles. Maybe not magic, maybe it's just projectiles, but either way, he's got a shield. He heals a lot. He does a lot of damage. He's just a menace. And I actually killed him on my first try, only for his squires to come down from the castle above and kill me. I was I was like, are you serious? And I had to fight him all over again. That said, the whole slow down time, make him bleed a bunch, keep him bleeding, just stack bleeds, works like a charm, kills him every time. But I loved that fight. That was such a fun fight. You had to dodge a lot. I was popping potions. I was just getting in there. That was a really, really fun fight. Now, my big gripe with Act 1 has to do with Galahad, actually. So, some of you might be in the situation that I am. I'm probably going to create like another like short video on how to actually fix this. But anyway, so at the end of Act 1, you're given a few decision points. You end up finding Brandon, the captain of the Keepers, and he gives you a couple options. One of which is whether or not you're going to kill Galahad. I chose to kill Galahad. The second choice is basically, it has to do with Arthur's backstory, and basically, are you going to lie to the Keepers for them to keep hope, or are you just going to say, hey, Brandon, screw off, I'm not helping you out, this isn't my fight? And so I picked that option because I was thinking, basically, maybe he's going to tell the Keepers that, like, everything they knew was kind of a lie, and maybe some of them will take my side, some of them will be against me. Nope, everybody goes against you. And unfortunately, the game doesn't really give you any kind of warning that what you decide here is going to change how your game plays out, which is really what I wish they would have done, giving you some kind of warning, like, after you make this decision, big things are going to happen, because as soon as that happens, as soon as you make that decision, and you decide not to side with Brandon, so basically the Keepers in the south and the village that's like right down the hill from them on the seaside, your bounty goes to unforgivable, and they will all attack you on sight, which means anything, the blacksmith, bounties, Orlaf, Fergus, anything in there, anything in the village down below. So if you're trying to like repair the archway or the docks, anything down there, you cannot complete them anymore. They are all hostile against you. And so I had a lot of quests that were just kind of left unfinished. I couldn't finish them. Even what's his name, Margith, like the hunter that you go and like leads you to the necromancer, he aggroes you. Basically the only place that I found that you could go was the Temple of the All-Mother, which they're already like super weird up there anyway, but they won't aggro you. So there is a blacksmithing table up there, like there's all that stuff, you can do that all there. But unfortunately, so to complete the last part of the quest, there is a gong you need to find. There's a big archway in the ocean right down by that village. So you pick up the gong, and based on what I've read online, in order to fix the gong, you can just have the blacksmith in the keep fix it for you at the cost of 15 those cobwebs, right? The weird cobwebs. But obviously, if he aggroes against you, he won't help you. The problem is that the main quest that's actually in your quest menu, if you decide to go with Brandon, disappears. So there is nothing to tell you where to go. There's nothing to tell you what your next mission is. You still have the quest that says like, oh, you're helping Arthur, you need to find this, but it doesn't give you any kind of direction. Now, ultimately, what you need to end up doing is pull Excalibur without anyone's help. Well, where is Excalibur? Unfortunately, there's no quest marker for it. I didn't take stock of where it was while I was playing the game, but it's in the keep. It's basically up if you're going to the captain's quarters, and that's why I never saw it. I never went up there to the captain's quarters. It's just sitting there in a statue. So basically what you have to do is you have to go down to the village, because the front gate is barred. You can't get in that way. So you go in through the village, up in the keep. You have to kill everybody, because if you don't kill everybody, then you can't activate. The sword literally won't let you activate it. So you kill all of them. So not only could you not complete the side quests or any quests that you had active because they were aggro against you, but you literally have to kill everybody. And then you can pull the sword, which then progresses your main quest. Now, unfortunately, because I didn't have anything to push me in this direction, me and YouTube chat and Twitch chat, we were trying to figure it out, and there was a forum on Steam. This is by no means the game's fault, but there was a forum on Steam that we found where someone in the comments basically said, hey, there's this bee queen, go do her quest line. I'm not going to say anything more than that. So I'm thinking, oh, she's going to use her, I was like joking around. I was like, oh, she's going to use her honey and she's going to make this gong stick together. Well, so what is her quest line? Her quest line is that she needs these weird cobwebs to like build out her hive. So she initially asks you, I think it's for 100, which is like, oh, that's no big deal. I got 100 sitting around here. Then she wants 250. It's like, all right, that's a little bit more, but it's doable. I think over 2 nights, I was able to kill enough weird spawn to get that. Go back, give those to her. She then says, okay, now I want 500. I'm like, okay, that's a lot, but I'll go get them. Couple nights later, weird spawn are starting to be harder to find for whatever reason. I don't know what their spawn rates are. I don't know the best place to find them. I went to the, what is it? The archway something or other. Yeah, there's a quest there that tells you to go there that you can get cobwebs. That was kind of the best place. Plus the cemetery. That was kind of also the best place I found. So anyway, go ahead, collect all those cobwebs, go back to her. And where was I on 250? 500? Either way, she says 500. Go do that. Come back to her. Then she says she wants 1,000. At this point, if I didn't think that there was a reason I was doing this for the main quest, I would probably not do this, because I'd probably sat there for another hour and a half, 2 hours farming these cobwebs and thinking, because it's not even a side quest, it's a miscellaneous quest. So I was like, okay, this is a weird way to go through the main story, but I guess this is how you do it. It's not. The whole reason that the person put that in the comment section is because doing that quest will give you this special honey potion, which restores 100% of your health. And the reason you need that, or you don't even necessarily need it, it's just a nice to have. For one, if you're not very strong going into the keep to kill everyone, it'll help you regain your health. But when you're pulling Excalibur, your health will drain very quickly, and so you basically need to hold down the button to pull Excalibur, but also be popping potions to regain your health, unless you just magically have like 1,000,000 health at this point. So yeah, I kind of spent like 3.5 hours farming these cobwebs for ultimately nothing. Again, that necessarily is not the game's fault. The game's fault, and this is where I'm putting it on the developers here, is that there was no direction given to me of where I needed to go. That needed to be a lot more clear, because what it kind of felt like is that the developers had a planned route that they want the players to take. And if you don't take that route, they kind of didn't plan for that, and so a new quest didn't pop up, basically. So I don't know what the quest situation looks like if you take the preferred route, but just keep that in mind, that might be an issue for you if you run into that. Obviously, once I found out where Excalibur was and how to get it, it made a lot of sense. But like, I went through, so when I first decided not to side with Brandon, I went to the teleport point right at the beginning of where the keep was. and right where that, you know, the drunk guy is, he's sleeping, and the gate was down. So I was like, okay, I didn't even think about the back door, but I was like, okay, I can't even get in there. Plus I saw that I had a bounty. I teleported down to the village and everyone started attacking me. So I was like, okay, I need to figure out a different way to fix this gong, because that in my mind is what I need to do. Because the dialogue and like Arthur was saying like, yeah, we got to fix this gong. So I'm like, okay, how do I fix the gong? But I didn't even have to fix the gong. So I don't know exactly what the gong does if you don't take the route I did, but that whole part of the game has been, it was very messy. It was very sloppily done. That's kind of the worst situation that I've been in so far with this game. Everything else has been very clean, but for whatever reason, this part just like really grinded my gears. I spent a lot of time just kind of like going through quests, trying to figure out what to do. Nothing really came up with it. So if that's the worst of it, hey, it is what it is. But that's kind of how my Act 1 ended, which wasn't great. But everything else in Act 1, I had a really great time with. So, if you did skip over the spoiler section and you're here for the end of the video, ultimately, my take on Tainted Grail Fall of Avalon has really gone up since my first 4 hours in the game. I'm having a lot of fun. I would highly recommend this game. If you do like these kind of open world first-person RPGs, or even if you want to play it third person, you can, although they kind of, you know, give you the warning like, hey, you might not want to play it in third person. We didn't design the game around it. Some of the animations might be a little bit janky, but hey, it's there. They give you the option if you want to go for that, which I've had some people come in my chat and say, I prefer playing third person, which is totally fine. And I mean, hey, if you prefer to play that way, you play that way. You play the way that you want to play. But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun. Would highly recommend it. The quests are super fun to play. I love exploring all the different caves. The combat system has really opened up and I have a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of flexibility in how you want to build your characters. And overall, I'm just having a very fun time. And it seems like there's a lot of gameplay to be had here. Like I said, I just completed Act 1 and I would say it took me roughly 25 hours to do mostly everything I wanted to do. But guys, let me know how you are enjoying Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon. If you are playing, let me know how far you are. And of course, if you haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the channel, or give me a follow over on Twitch if you want to catch me live. Usually, I'm playing Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday around 6 p.m. Eastern, and of course, Saturday and Sunday. I'm trying to get streams in when I can. With this game, I played for basically all of Saturday and a bit of Sunday, but those, of course, fluctuate depending on when I have available. But guys, those are my thoughts of Act 1. And that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see y'all in the next one.